Hi guys, Mrs. Hosback here. I am so pleased to see that some of you have been uploading your finished leaf compositions to Schoology. I love seeing the finished work since we can't see it in real life together. Thank you for those of you who have uploaded your work. Today we are going to be starting a new project and we are going to be talking about form first. And form is just basically a three-dimensional shape. And we call that 3D for short. So you're going to be taking a simple shape, adding a few extra details, a few extra lines, and turning it into what looks like a form. And then we're also going to be adding some interesting ways of having lines kind of popping out of those forms and maybe going into other forms. And then next week, we're going to add some color to make it look like colors are exploding out of the forms and maybe traveling across our paper into another form. And I cannot wait to show you. They're really cool. I hope you're excited to start our newest project. This one's called our Color Explosion drawing. Hopefully you remember that shapes are flat and forms are three-dimensional. First, we have a cube. A cube is a box-shaped object with 6 identical square surfaces. Next up, a cylinder. A cylinder is an object with 2 flat circular ends and 1 curved side. Next, we have a cone. A cone is an object with a flat circular base and a pointed top. A pyramid is an object with a square base and 4 triangular sides that meet up at the top and a point. Sphere. A sphere is shaped like a ball and has no sides or angles. And last, we have a prism. A prism is an object with 2 identical ends and all flat sides. You will be choosing at least 2 forms to include in your composition, but you can definitely do more than that if you've got a really creative idea. You should already have your basic materials out: a pencil, an eraser, paper, maybe a sketchbook, maybe even your dry erase board to try out a few ideas on. And while you're at it, if you want to be completely ready, you may as well get a final drawing paper out and a marker for tracing. We won't need any color today. That will be for next week. So we talk about a form having 3 dimensions or being 3D. Those 3 dimensions are length, width, and height. Okay, so now let's talk about how to draw a form. And a form always starts with a shape. So you can see me drawing a rectangle here. Then we just have to figure out how to add a few extra lines to make it look 3-dimensional. One way to make a flat shape look 3-dimensional is by adding some diagonal lines going towards each other, connecting those diagonals with a parallel line, and then adding some vertical lines to go down inside of the shape to make it look like it's an open shape. You definitely want to start this project with a pencil and sketching lightly, because parts of these forms are going to need to be erased for the color explosion to be able to come out in a successful way. So make sure you're pushing lightly, and you may even want to do a few quick sketches in your sketchbook or on a scrap paper before you begin on your final nice drawing paper. Here you're going to see me use a different technique of creating a three-dimensional looking box. So instead of starting with the diagonal lines, I started with 2 vertical lines and then connected the front corners to the vertical lines with a diagonal, and then drew that connecting parallel line across the back. I'm going to do the same thing for this small box in the center here. So if you didn't catch it the first time, watch closely. Those 2 little vertical lines, then I connect it with the diagonal lines, and then that parallel line across the back. So I've already been thinking about composition by thinking about the sizes and placement of the boxes that I've been drawing. But now you're going to see me use a book as a straight edge to create what looks like a tabletop. So thinking about how the whole space is going to be arranged. So I'm going to create a straight line that goes behind and makes the boxes look like they're sitting on a table. There are so many different options for composition, so don't be limited to just a tabletop. Your box could be floating. It could be floating on a cloud. It could be upside down, and your color could be pouring out from it. Things could be growing out from it. So be creative and think about what you want your whole paper to look like. And if you feel like challenging yourself, you're not just limited to rectangles and squares to make into forms. You can really make any flat shape into a form. So if you're feeling like you want to push yourself and try something a little bit more challenging, think about what other shapes you could try to make into a form and sketch them out and see how it goes in your sketchbook first, and then decide which ones you would like to use in your artwork. Just like in this example, I decided to start with 2 cones on one end of my paper, and I'm making 3 cylinders on the opposite end of that paper. And I'm going to try to make the color look like it's flowing in between the 5 forms, so maybe out of one form and into the other. So it looks like it's going across my paper. As you watch me draw, I hope that you're noticing that I'm erasing certain areas to make the different parts of where I'm going to add the color later look like they're going behind or in front of other parts, and that will add more interest to my overall composition. Once you're finished sketching out the layout of your composition, you have a few choices before we start adding color next week. You could go over all of your lines with pencil just a little darker, or you could trace with a black marker or a black pen and erase your pencil lines. As you're working today, don't forget to think about movement, trying to create movement with those lines that will eventually get color, making them move across your paper or out of that form in an interesting way. And also balance, like how you fill that whole space on your paper. We don't want a big empty spot or a spot that feels too filled up. So think about the whole paper and how it all works together. Now it's time to start doing a little quick sketching and planning to figure out how you want your paper to look, and then deciding on which forms you would like to use in your composition. And make sure even to draw in the paths of where you want your color to go and how you want it to move across your paper. Again, make sure to think about the whole paper. Once you have a composition that you like, then you can start tracing with a pen or with a marker to outline the edges and really make everything pop so that it's ready for color next week. Don't start adding color yet, because I've got some really cool ideas to share with you that might inspire you. Your must-haves for today are that you need to include at least 2 forms. You can include more than 2, of course. One of mine I think had 5. You need to think about your whole paper, so your whole entire composition. So it starts with, is your paper vertical or horizontal? How large are you going to draw your forms? Where are you going to draw your forms? Are they going to be in the center, the corners, the middle, the top, the sides, upside down? And then how will the paths of color for your color explosion fill the rest of your space, the rest of your paper? And finally, our must-have today is to draw lightly. You're going to need to do a lot of erasing to make things look like they're in front of other objects. And in order to do that successfully, you need to draw lightly so that you can erase those lines and you're not stuck staring at those eraser marks. I think it always helps to sketch out a few quick ideas first and kind of figure out what you're liking and what feels like it's going in the right direction, and then move on to your final paper. And you can do this on a sketch paper, in your sketchbook, or even on your dry erase board. As you see me finish up one of my last ideas here with a tree, of course, the colors would be flowing into the branches of the tree. I know 20 minutes goes by really fast and you might not have had a chance to get very much done today. So if you would like to be ready to start with color with me next week, you might want to work on this a little bit outside of this time, and that way you can be ready to start with color for next week. So by next week, what I hope you have done is your composition fully sketched out with at least 2 forms and showing how your color is exploding out of those forms by using some lines or drawing the paths of those explosions. And then hopefully trace with a pen or a marker, or even just pushing harder with your pencil once you have everything complete. And make sure that everything looks nice and clean and neat, and then we can start talking about how we can add some color for next time. So the materials that you need to bring with you for next week are kind of like we did for our leaf project, how I asked you to think about what material that you have the most variety of color of at your house and then what you have access to, and maybe use that same material for this project as well. We're going to be doing a few different ways of blending, and I will be showing you how to blend with these 3 different materials with both markers, crayons, and colored pencils. So whatever you bring, I will be going over how to use that material to make a really cool effect and make your colors look like they're really amazing as they explode out of your forms. I can't wait to see your progress. Feel free to upload it to Schoology to show me. I hope you're having fun with this, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.